Hello, I'm Nick Leeming. This is the third of a series of videos on the maintenance fettling of Northumbrian Smallpipes. Today I'm going to show you how to take a set of pipes to pieces and to put them back together again. But if you haven't seen the first video, which contains an introduction, please watch that first. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to take the chanter out of the chanter stock. This is the chanter, this is what plays the tune, this is the stock which is sewn into the bag. This set actually has what is called an interchangeable stock, which is an intermediary piece of wood between the chanter itself and the bag. What I'm going to do is I'm going to treat this as if it's a simple set without an interchangeable stock. What you need to do is you need to separate the chanter from the stock without using excessive force. You only use your fingers. It's like writing. You use your fingers to write with. You wouldn't dream of using your arms to write with. So you don't want to use your arms to pull the pipes apart because there's too much strength and you haven't got enough control. So what you do is, very simply, you put your hands together like this and you squeeze. And if you watch my knuckles, as I squeeze, I'm imagining there's a set of pipes inside my hands, and I'll show you in a minute. You squeeze your fingers together, and as you do so, your knuckles separate. I'll do that again. Put your fingers together, your knuckles are close, squeeze, and they move apart. Now if I do that again with the pipes, this is where the chanter joins the stock. This is what you're going to move. So you put one hand there, gripping the chanter, not too firmly, but with sufficient force that you don't disturb the keys. Put your other hand over the chanter stock and then squeeze, and my knuckles have moved sufficiently far apart that I've pulled the chanter roughly 1/4 of an inch out from the stock. Do that again and it's free, and then very carefully guide it out because there's the reed and you don't want the reed to be touching the side of the pipes. So that is the chanter out of the stock. If it won't come, it may be that it has been glued in place, and what you must look for is a pin drilled into the side of this. I haven't got one to show you, but basically what one of the pipe makers did was to, when he'd set the pipes up, was to drill through the top edge of the stock and then insert a pin in so that the pipes could not be taken to pieces. I'll show you how to deal with that in a separate video. So you now have the chanter free. The important thing is do not damage the reed. You're going to take the reed out. Some reeds are glued in. Again, I'll show you how to deal with that in a separate video. The important thing to do at this point is to measure the distance between shoulder of the chanter, this bit, and the end of the reed, because that will determine the tuning of the reed. So in this case, it's 49 millimeters, 49.5. You can use a vernier gauge, much more accurate, but a little rule like that is very useful. So then to take the reed out, you put your fingers to one side, thumb on top, and then using a variant of the same technique, don't squeeze the reed too hard, it should just come out very easily. There's the reed, put that somewhere very safe. You can now work on your chanter if you want to. I'm going to simply put the reed back in the chanter and put the chanter back in the pipes and show you how to take other parts to pieces. Naturally, if you were working on the pipes, you'd do something with them. You'd be replacing the binding or checking a key or something like that. But take your reed from the safe place you put it in and then gently put it back into the chanter. Measure that it is the same 49.5 millimeters, This is a really important bit. You must make sure that the reed is correctly aligned before you put it back. If you hold your little ruler up to the edge of the chanted tenon, this bit that goes in the stock is called the tenon, you'll see there's a good millimetre of clearance between the reed and the edge of the ruler. The ruler in this point represents the inside of the stock. Turn the reed around and do the same. You've got maybe a little bit more. So I'm going to move the reed a tiny bit over. So I've got 1.5 millimetres or so there. Just about the same there. Looking at the reed, it's quite straight. Then I want to guide it back into the stock. So again, I'm using minimum force, and I'm gently, if you think of the space shuttle approaching the space station, you're docking, and you gently put the reed in there so it doesn't touch anything, and then the bindings begin to stick, and you push it home and you gently twist it. That is the chanter back in the stock. Now I'm going to show you what goes wrong. So I'm going to put my pipes to one side, and I'm going to grab another set. As they say, here's one I prepared earlier. Now this chanter is not the best ever made. If you look, you will see that the hole in the top has been drilled slightly off centre. That means when I put the reed in a certain way, then the reed is right up against the side of where the stock is. So when I try and rotate the reed in the stock, that is the sound of a reed dying. You want to avoid that at all costs. So it's really important to check that your reed does not point out to the side so it won't touch the edges of the stock. The second thing I want to show you with this is what happens if you use your arms rather than your fingers to pull the chanter apart. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull them apart, and then the natural reaction when you do pull them apart using your arms is to push them back together again. And what I've seen people do is pull it, and when it starts to come, I'm doing this in slow motion, when it starts to come, they realise they're pulling it far too fast and they'll push back, and the reed will hit the side of the stock and break. So that's why you do not use your arms, you use your fists, because otherwise you'll end up going and the thing will break. We've taken the chanter out and put it back together again. Next, I'm going to take the drones out and put them back in. Again, I'm assuming that your drones have not been glued in place. I will deal with that in a separate video. There are 4 drones on a typical set of Northumbrian pipes. 2 large drones, D and G, 2 small drones, D and G. Each drone has 2 main components: the sliding part, which is how you tune by moving it up and down, and the standing part, the bit that doesn't move. The standing part is held in the drone stock in a tenon and hole arrangement, which has a binding on it. You may want to replace the binding at some point. I will show you how to do that in another video. But to remove the drone from the stock, you again use your fingers, you don't use your arms. I'm going to show you how to do it with the small D drone. Before you take your drones out of the chanter, do remember to make a note of where they sit in the stock so you put them back in the right place. I simply draw a diagram with 4 holes in it and I label them in relation to the top of the bag as folded. So I've got my large G and my large D on the bottom, my small d and my small g on the top. I'm going to take out my small g drone. First, I'll remove the sliding part, put that somewhere safe. Then I'm going to grip the standing part of the drone in my thumb and forefinger like this, so I'm holding it. Then I'm going to grip the stock so that my fingers are touching like that, and I'm going to just use the force of pushing against my fingers. There, it's come out 1/4 inch, and again it's come out 1/2 inch, and then it's loose, and I carefully withdraw to expose the drone reed. That works. There we go, 1 drone removed. What I use when I'm taking pipes to pieces is an old cushion filled with rice. It's essentially a bean bag. Most pipe makers have such wonderfully messy benches that they can put something down, it won't roll away. But I don't trust that. I tend to put things on the cushion and then they won't go anywhere at all. I'll try and take the other ones out. Same technique. Place it there. Notice I'm never waggling them. Don't ever do this with them because you can snap the tenons. Don't use excessive force. If you feel you have to use excessive force, they may be glued. And again, refer to a later video on gluing, or take them to an expert. Now, sometimes they're a little bit stiff. I was rotating it, but I wasn't waggling it. There now, and there's the reed. So, that's the reeds out. Now to put them back together again, presumably you're going to work on them. We'll deal with maintenance of reeds and drones another time, but simply to put them back in. The large D. Very great care here so that the blade of the reed does not touch the sides of the stock hole. There's a convention that the blade of the reed always goes to the centre of the stock, but it's not necessarily vital. Get it in there and push it home. There. Some drones will have a piece of wood cut out so that they don't touch. If you have that on your drones, be careful when putting them back together again. In fact, I've realised one of mine has, and I'll show you in a minute. So, by convention, blade towards the centre, push it back, and you can see here that the small G drone has a little flap there to stop it, to allow it to go all the way home and not touch its neighbour. It's just a simple matter of holding the drone firmly, gripping the stock firmly and pushing the drone home. That's drones out and back home. The final piece of the main set of pipes is the blowpipe. It's exactly the same sort of technique. You use your fists and you gently pull it out. There it's coming. It's not always easy, but with patience you'll get there. There. And there's your blowpipe with the clack valve. That stops the air going back down the bag. Now, a lot of pipes have, this will, with use, rotate. A lot of pipes, as you can see with this, have a notch. I don't know if you can see that, how I hold a notch or a little piece of mother of pearl inserted to show you where the hinge on the clack valve is. Think of that as being 12 o'clock. It always should be vertical. You don't want your valve doing that in use because it won't fall home smartly. If it's like that when it's in use, the valve will come down. I don't know if I can show you, but and it won't work so well if it's not at the right angle. So you have this notch, where is it, there, at 12 o'clock when you're holding them. So you put it back like that and push it home, and you can see the notch is uppermost, so that when you're actually playing the pipes, the valve is in the correct position. That is the main parts of the actual bagpipe itself dismantled and put back together again. I mentioned that this set has what we call an interchangeable stock. If you want to take that out, then it's the same as if you're taking the chanter out, but you don't have to be quite as careful simply because you haven't got the reed exposed. There's the interchangeable stock, and you can then, if you want to oil the chanter, you can take it away and work on it. However, the same applies as if you were using a chanter straight out of the neck. If you want to take them to pieces, you do it the same way, gently and firmly, but you can take the stock off a little bit easier without the encumbrance of the back. Put it back, home, and this is very easy. You just simply try not to trap the material of the bag cover, and then you just push it home. Then you can rotate it to your heart's content when you play it. For the bellows, the only moving part of significance is the inlet valve, which is another clack valve, and to take that out you use your fingertips and your thumb, and you're again working, rather than just pulling, you are working your fingertips and your thumb against the bellows plate whilst gripping the clack valve and easing it out. You can see it's starting to come. You put it out very gently, and again you can see there is a clack valve there, and that's where the air goes in here, and when you close the bellows, that stops the air from coming out. So to put that back, again, it's got to be at 12 o'clock. So hold the valve securely, hinge uppermost, gently insert it in, and then push it home, and that is your bellows clack valve. That's how to take a set of pipes apart and put them back together again. Thank you.